Good morning, everyone. Good morning, chamber members. Hope everyone had a nice new year and we're ready to start the year, hit the ground running. My name's Anita Grace. I am one of the board members here at the Latino Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for attending today's webinar. This is one actually that I was excited to see myself because it's a huge topic, as we all know, and we're looking forward to learning more about it. So just to kind of give a recap of the goals for today's webinar is we want to establish what is AI, how did we get here, and then explore opportunities for small businesses to incorporate the AI technology into everyday operations so that we can optimize costs for all of our businesses, improve our revenues, and get insights previously hidden in large amounts of data, which AI will be helping us with. I'd like to welcome and introduce Samir Estefan. He's our presenter today.
Hello.
He's an Thank you, Samir, for presenting. We're all looking forward to it. So members, here's why we need to listen to what he says. He's an economist from the Universidad de los Andes. He holds an MBA from the Thunderbird School of Global Management. He's worked for multinational companies in technology and banking and has over a decade advising businesses of all sizes in the region on how to adapt and maximize this technology for their operations. And Samir, I'll let you introduce yourself. I mean, nobody does it better. Nobody knows it better that what you're about to talk about than you. And so just thanks for joining us, members. If you have questions, you can go ahead and raise your hand and we can call on you. You can type it into the chat or you can just jump in. We want this to be very conversational and interactive. So you don't need to hold your questions to the end. Just kind of jump in when there's a nice pause in the conversation and Samir will answer any questions that you have. Samir, I'll go ahead and hand the floor over to you. Welcome.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for joining us. Please bear in mind, I'm not a native English speaker, so if I make some grammar mistakes, I'm sorry. And also bear in mind that half of my brain is now translating, so bear with me. I want to start with this quote from Time Magazine from last year. It says, "Disruptive technologies alter the structure of society and the fabric of our lives." And I really like it because when we talk about technology, sometimes we stay like on a very shallow level, and we do not take into account how technology has changed our lives, our society. Probably when you look or think at how the cell phone changed your business and changed your life. I don't know how many of you have met your significant other on a dating site, but this was not always like this. Also, if you think about how the internet changed the world and how it changes as humans and how it changed the discourse around everything. I think when you see that quote, you can even go further and try to figure out what was the impact almost 200 years ago with electricity and how electricity changed our lives. And try to do this. Some of you do it probably on a yearly basis when you go hiking or something, but try to figure out how much time can you live without any kind of electricity? How long will you be able to make it? And finally, this is my favorite. As you heard, I study economics. So this is one of the my favorite appropriations of technology and how it changed the world. It's agriculture. Before we were able to manage agriculture and to grow the crops that we wanted, we basically had to follow crops and animals where they were available. But if you sit down for a minute and think, what things changed after we were able to make our own crops, to be able to grow them? Things like the cities started to spark. Jobs like the architect began to flourish because before there was no place for someone thinking if a house should be like this or if a barn should be like that. And so there's always unintended consequences when you think about technology and its impact on people. And I showed you only half of the quote from Time. The truth is, the complete quote says, artificial intelligence may be the biggest game changer yet. And so that's why we're here. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about how to apply it to small and medium businesses. That's the idea for today. At the end, there's a QR code if you want to download the slides. So feel free to do so. And I wanted to start with this. 2024 was the year of AI's democratization. Most of the people that are connected to the internet had like a very uh, clear grasp or opportunity to use AI. And I have this video from 1965. I don't think you'll be able to hear it because I don't know, the sound is not going through Zoom. But you can read what he says. This is Arthur C. Clarke in 1965 talking about how computers would be more intelligent than people and how the computers of 1965 were morons completely if you would think where the technology would bring us. So from 1965 to 2025, that's the future that Arthur C. Clarke and the BBC was talking about in that moment. That's where we are. We're talking about AI. So basically, we should start with this. What is AI? AI is a set of tools that allows the simulation of human intelligence processes by computer systems. Okay, and they have three different and three very important things you should think about. The first one, uh, it includes the process of acquisition of information and the rules to use that information. That's what we call learning. So if you have a kid or if you have a small dog, you know how you can give them information and you can give them rules, and we start learning. The second one is the use of that information and rules to reach either approximate or definitive conclusions. That's what we call reasoning. And the last one, which is basically the game changer, is the possibility of self-correction. Okay, so now we have computers that can learn, we have computers that can reason, and now we have computers that can self-correct and relearn based on those prior experiences. That's what we've been talking about. Bill Gates said in March of last year that there was two different demonstrations of technology that had really blown his mind. The first one was the graphical user interface. The graphical user interface, if you look at your computer, is basically the way how you use your computer. It's the mouse and the click. And remember, before the graphical user interface, you would have a computer and you would need to write the code and you would need to write everything you wanted to do. The day that the graphical user interface appeared, it changed computing forever. And it basically changed it because it allowed people like my mother to use a computer. She could understand easily that if you moved the mouse and then you clicked on something and then you could pull it or you could drop it. And basically, I think I always tell this in my conferences, the killer feature of Windows 1 was the solitaire game because it basically taught the people how to use the mouse. And then the second technology he speaks about is ChatGPT, right? And I think if someone like Bill Gates was impressed with ChatGPT, it must be because ChatGPT was really, really, really cool and really interesting. But ChatGPT, it's only one of the different ways we use artificial intelligence. It's called generative artificial intelligence, but we have other models. We do supervised learning, unsupervised learning. We have machine learning algorithms. We have generative adversarial networks, or we have reinforcement learning. In the end, all of them work fairly similar, but have different approaches. And I don't know if you felt throughout the past 4 years that everything goes so fast, like the world is really moving fast. And you start hearing things like blockchain and Kubernetes and the metaverse and virtual reality and CRISPR and AI and whatever. And it seems that everything is going faster and faster and faster. Um, Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, was in a conference like 3 weeks ago, and this was one of the phrases that I really liked. The change that's happening now is much faster than ever before. And I think it's true. And it's this guy's fault. Well, it's not this guy's fault, but this guy was the one who found why we feel that the world is going faster. Gordon Moore was one of the co-founders of Intel and Fairchild Semiconductor. If you use an Intel computer, well, it's basically the company that he built. And in 1965, Moore found like he discovered that every 18 months, the amount of chips, the amount of circuits in his chips doubled. So every 18 months, they were able to produce twice the capacity at the same price, or the same capacity at half the price. And if you come to think, Moore's law has been basically like the mantra of how technology has been growing and the speed at which it has been evolving during the past 50 years or 60 years. And we as humans have a problem thinking exponentially. So let's do a small exercise. If you take 10 steps and each step is equal to the last one, then you would go from 1 to 2, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Technology doesn't grow at that pace. Technology grows at the double of the last step it took. So in the first step, it would go from 1 to 2, but then it would not go to 3. Instead, it would go to 4, and then to 8, and then to 16, 32, 64, 128, 256. The interesting thing happens when you extrapolate this in 45 different iterations. You don't go from 1 to 45. You go from 1 to 17 trillion, or to 17 billion in your case. You go from 1 to 17 billion. This is the pace at which technology has been growing. And one of the most interesting things is people think we're up there on the right. Truth is, we're only here. So the changes that we're going to be seeing in the next 3 or 4 iterations are way larger than all of the changes that we've seen in the last 40 iterations. And I would like you to bear this in mind, because this is one of the, I would say, one of the highlights of this conference would be, bear in mind that the speed of technology will keep increasing, and that what you will see in the next years will be much faster, much more dramatically important than what we've seen in the last 25 years. Even then, Jensen Huang, it was a couple of days ago, he was opening the CES conference in Las Vegas, and he said, our systems are growing way faster than Moore's law, because they can build the architecture, the chips, the systems, the libraries, the algorithms. So they're seeing how Moore's law is even slower than what we're seeing in terms of AI right now. Okay, but we've been talking about AI really since 1956, when a group of scientists at the Dartmouth Summer Research Project basically set up a theory, and they said, what would happen if instead of telling the computer what to do, we would give the computer the information, the rules, and we would let the computer reason and take action based on that information. The theory was sound, but they had a big problem. Well, in fact, they had 3 problems. They needed data, which they didn't have. They needed storage, where to put the data, which was super costly. And they needed processing power, which, if you can figure out processing power of computers in 1956, was way less than what you can get today from a smartwatch. So they didn't have any of this. Okay, so what happened since 1956 up until a couple of years ago to take us to the AI boom that we are currently living in? In 1969, first programmable control. Then in 1970, we started talking about cloud computing, although we had to wait almost 24 years before any real implementation of cloud computing was available for the public. In 1983, the internet was created, but then we had to wait 12 years before most of us were able to access the internet. In 1996, Google appeared, and Google is a pivotal part of what we're seeing today in artificial intelligence, basically because of the research they did, and basically because most of the models are based on foundations that they created using their technology. In 1999, the dot-com boom, and then in 2003, computers were able to learn how to understand words. Before 2003, computers were able to understand numbers, but in 2003, with natural language processing, computers could understand what you were saying in words. They wouldn't need to translate everything to English. 2007, the iPhone appears, the mobile revolution starts, and it kicks a total change of the world. 2010, social media appears. Then in 2013, there's a technology that comes out. It's called engrams, and basically the easiest way to explain an engram is when you type something into Google, right? You start typing into Google, and it can start to autocomplete what you're writing. That's an engram. It's the possibility of predicting text based on what you are writing, where you are, who you are, et cetera, et cetera. And then in 2016, we started to see transformer models with encoders and decoders, and all of the pre-trained language models. And I'm going to tell you, this is the only like super geeky slide that we have today. Okay. And so three things really helped the AI boom. All of the technology that you saw, but there's three things that were pivotal to let us arrive where we are today. The first one was the dot-com boom, and then the bust. So the dot-com boom started, all of the telco companies, all of the data centers, they started building data centers, they started building cables to connect the world, and then the bubble exploded. And they were left with a bunch of infrastructure that no one was using. And so first, we had more processing power because all of them were built it for the dot-com boom. There was better connectivity. And then when they couldn't use it, when they couldn't sell it to anyone after the bust, basically they were giving it away almost for free, like penny on the dollar. Hey, I can give you this storage, I can give you this processing power, penny on the dollar, because basically I already have it there. I don't want to go broke. So storage and processing costs came really, really down. When the mobile revolution appeared, we started thinking differently of performance. It was not only how much processing power do we need, but how can we have the best performance per watt? Why? Because we needed our phones to last for the day. Okay. Then we needed to transmit data wirelessly. And so something happened, and you can see it if you can remember. If you were users of Netflix in the beginning, you remember how long it would take to download everything or to stream anything. But now with all the algorithms that compress data, we can have better data compression, so we can send more data in the same packet, and we can send it faster. And thus the data transfer speeds and the wireless connectivity increased. And then social media came, and basically we started producing data, and more data. And if you remember the three constraints that the scientists had in 1956, then suddenly they all appeared. We had all of them. We have the power, the processing power, we have the storage capabilities, and we have the data. Not only do we have the data, but we have labeled data. I use this example of how many pictures of cats are available in the internet, and what happens when I upload a picture with a cat and I tag it with the word cat. So if I have 300 million posts of cats, they have been clearly labeled, I can give that to an algorithm and tell him, hey, you know what? Tell it, you know what? This is a cat. This is a cat. This is a cat 300 million times. And thus, if you remember, one of the first things that your phones or your phone or your photo applications could do was recognize when a cat or a dog was in it. And then they started to be able to understand who was in it, because we as users started labeling those pictures. So processing power, storage, and data. Let's talk about a little bit about data, just to like give a sense of what's happening. Every 2 years, we're doubling the amount of data that we produce. This year, we will produce around 175 zettabytes. A zettabyte, for those of you who don't know, it's 1 billion terabytes. So most of you have a computer with 1 terabyte. So it would be 1 billion of those computers. And if you look, for example, at the big models that we're using in AI, when GPT-2 came out, it was trained on 1.5 billion parameters. Then GPT-3 came out, and it went from 1.5 to 175 billion parameters. And now we're almost over the 2 trillion parameters with Gemini, which has 1.6 trillion, and Claude or Opus that have 2 trillion. So we're looking at massive scales of data. And that brings the same principles that we've seen in Moore's Law into the play. When OpenAI trained its GPT-3 model in 2018, it invested $5 million in training that model. Okay. If you take one model the same size of GPT-3 and you train that model last year, it would have only cost you $500,000. And probably by the end of this year, it'll cost you $35,000 because the costs of training artificial intelligence models are decreasing around 70% per year. This is super interesting because it means that any company, independent of the size, will be able to invest an amount, which $35,000 for training a full model. I don't know, maybe it's a good deal. But it's not only the costs of training, the cost of processing those queries has dropped. 2 years ago, you would pay one token for each 100 words. And it has dropped 100 times in the last 24 months. So now with the same token, you can process almost 10,000 words. So the costs of using AI have decreased dramatically over the past years. And there are 3 things that have happened also, or that are happening between July, September, and we'll see it play throughout this year. The first thing is, if you are building your model, you don't need that much data because you can produce synthetic data from the real data that you have. So you obviously don't have the same amount of data that Google has or that Amazon has, but you don't need that same amount of data because you can produce synthetic data from the data that you currently have. The second thing is we're seeing multimodal models, really multimodal models that can search, models that can see, models that can hear, models that can reason, models that can plan, and models that can execute things. So if you've used ChatGPT, you know at the beginning you were able to ask GPT for something and it would give you an answer. Then it would be able to give you an image. Now, some of these models can do things. Okay. We don't need general models for everything. We can use specialized models where the size really doesn't matter. So we've seen the rise of small language models which already run on your devices, your computers or your phones. And the last one is the increase in the context window. A context window is the size of the query you can write. So I would be able to ask ChatGPT, give me a list of all the names of all the presidents of the United States who were divorced, something like that. Okay. Now I used to be limited by 128K for that context window. Most of the models that we're seeing today have 1 million context windows. So that means I can create a query with 1 million words or 1 million words or documents or pages or instructions. And thus I can move from a space where I was basically producing text from text to producing action from those queries. And the last one is the possibility of having those AI agents, those LLMs, large language models, in memory. So they can run like in the RAM of your machines, which is basically what we're seeing, and it's being called AI agents. I don't know if you know Eric Schmidt. He used to be the CEO of Google. He was the responsible adult that the Google founders brought in when they were going to IPO. And he said last year, when these 3 things are delivered at scale, it's going to have an impact on the world at a scale we've never seen before. Okay. So let's back up for a minute and try to understand what artificial intelligence can do. Who is the checkers world champion? It's an algorithm. Who is the chess world champion? It's an algorithm. It's Deep Blue from IBM. Who is the Go world champion? I don't know if you've played Go. This is a very interesting and complex game. It's a very ancient Asian game. If you want, you can see a documentary. It's in Netflix and it's very cool. And I use always this example because of two things. The people from DeepMind, one day they said, hey, why don't we do for Go what IBM did for chess with Deep Blue? And so they got their algorithm, they got like number 2 and number 3 players in the world, and these players started training the algorithm. And then they found the Garry Kasparov of Go. His name is Lee Se-dong. He's Korean, and he was the world champion of Go. And so they tell him, hey, we want to play with you. We'll have a five match game. Let's see how we do. This is Lee Se-dong after the first game, which he lost. But you can see him smiling. And so one of the reporters asks him, hey, what happened? And he basically says, you know what? I didn't think that the algorithm was at the level it is. I tried to trick him and it caught me. So that's why I lost. But don't worry, I'm okay. So the couple of days later, he comes back for the second match. And please bear in mind that this is like football or NBA in Korea. You have all of the audience and you have the commentators and everyone's like live streaming this. And so around play number 18, the algorithm makes a move and all of the engineers in DeepMind grab their faces and are like, oh, damn, we messed up. And all of the commentators are like, what's going on? This has nothing. This is completely BS. This movement has no foundation. This is wrong. And this is Lee Se-dong. He waited, he thought of the move for almost 17 minutes. He went out, he had a cigarette, he came back, and he was trying to figure out why did the algorithm made that specific move. And now looking backwards, we all know that that movement changed the game forever. Lee Se-dong lost all except one of the 5 games. And then he said, hey, you know what? I'm going to retire because I will never be as good as the machine. So what did the people from Go did? They said, hey, you know what? We've got this algorithm that was trained by humans. What happens if we change the model and we make a model which learns by itself? Okay, so we basically tell the model what are the rules, and we let him start to play against itself. And then this new algorithm, which is called AlphaGo 0, surpasses the abilities of the AlphaGo that won to Lee Se-dong on the 3rd day. So it only took it 3 days to beat the best human available, and then it only took him another 18 days to become an AlphaGo master. So the second thing that I would highlight from the conference is the speed at which AI can learn and the speed at which AI can get into new things or new tasks. Okay, so what can we do? Speaking about speed, I don't know if you've used an algorithm, an AI algorithm called Midjourney, but basically you can write a text description of an image and it produces an image. So last year, you could write, hey, I need a painting of a blonde girl in front of a sunshine field. Or I could write, hey, I want a painting of an African-American man riding a horse on grass. And this is the images that you would get from that algorithm. If you do that today, these are the images that you get. Okay? So these people don't exist. They've never existed. This is not a picture someone took. This is a depiction of a text that someone wrote that the algorithm interpreted and created. And one of the things that baffles me is thinking that this is not a guy from New York, that these girls or these women were never alive, and that none of these people have ever lived, but that you can create images such as the one you probably saw and shared probably a couple of years ago of the Pope with this huge winter coat. None of these exist. All of these have been made via the use of artificial intelligence. And so I can produce images like this one with a very simple prompt. I need a picture of a happy female designer standing in office, or I can even go further with a longer description as this one. And one of the things when you're talking about artificial intelligence is the importance of the prompt, the importance of the instruction that you're given. I always try to, I've tried to find the prompt for this picture. I've never been able to find it, but I really like the picture because I'm sure it says, okay, it's a mother and a daughter. They're not really happy, 1920s, black and white. But also in some part of the prompt, someone said, hey, you know what? The photo should be scratched as if I took it out of a binder or something. So you can start imagining what people can do. So now you can produce images without taking any picture. If you have enough pictures of your products and services, you can create full 3D or full high resolution images that you can use, for example, in your advertising. But also you can somehow eliminate things from pictures you already have. So for example, this is a functionality that's already available in Android and in iOS. The picture is nice. I don't want the little car, take the car, but then think what's behind the car. Or this is a very cool picture, but I want to take the people out of the picture, so it's only me. So you can do this already in your Android phones or in your iOS devices. And now, as of today, well, as of 6 months ago, you can even produce video only by setting the scene. Hey, I want a house, or I want a video of a white Land Rover on a dust road, on a hill, blah, 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 or I want a video of some Labradors playing in the snow. There's no one recorded this. There's no telephones or camcorders or video recorders involved. And lastly, you can take a picture that you took and you can see it from different angles, although there's only one picture. So we have seen an advancement, especially in the topic of images. But you can also do sounds. And I'm sorry, this is not going to sound on the presentation, but this is a person that basically hums something and then it says, hey, can you do this on a saxophone? Okay. And then the algorithm will translate into a saxophone. And you can even say, hey, you know what? I want an ensemble of this. I want to do this as an ensemble. So imagine how this changes the creative process that a musician can have. Okay. So what could we do? Right? I've heard about AI. What can I do with it? First, you can summarize and you can extract information. Okay. Second, you can analyze, find patterns, generate insights, predict, learn. You can create documents, presentations, audios, videos, or you could automate. You could automate business processes with the help of AI. And when I speak with my customers about this, most of my customers are SMB. Even by your standards, our customers in Latin America are smaller than most of the SMBs in the US. But I always tell them, okay, if your strategy goes or is taking you into AI, there are 3 different ways you can do it. The first one is using pre-built applications. Oh, sorry. My fault. Was trying to get rid of this. Technical glitch. Okay, I think we're set, right? You're seeing a presentation again?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay,
we're seeing it.
So there's three ways you can move ahead with AI. The first one is pre-built applications. Okay, most of them you can use general purpose built applications. So ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Llama, Perplexity. There are a thousand different models, and every day you'll see something new. So I'll show you some examples. Um, I can use ChatGPT and tell it, hey, acting as a travel agent, uh, build a high-end travel plan for 4 people to the Amazon in Colombia. Okay, and it will build all of the travel plan. It'll give you when to come, where to go, where to stay, what to eat, what to do. It's very cool. If you're traveling somewhere and you already have your plans, try it. Ask GPT to build a process for you. And then you can compare. A second one, I could ask, for example, Perplexity, create a Python code that lets me automate the sending of emails, of marketing emails. Okay, and I want to do this on a daily basis. And so it'll basically write you the code, and then you can put that code into your application, or you can put that code into your website. Another
And
example,
Samir,
I did
sorry,
this.
maybe
Yeah.
one example just as a user, the one you were showing before with ChatGPT. I used it a couple of weeks ago and thinking of company-wise needs to help me build an expense policy for an event. So, which would be the guidelines that I would give the persons of my team that were going to travel to this event regarding the hotel, regarding transportation, regarding meals and expenses, everything, and it just built it up, and I had just to tune it a bit. But anything you need as a document or as information or as a travel plan, as you
Yeah,
showed, those
we
are
you
great
also used
functionality.
it. We also used it for a memorandum of understanding. Our memorandum of our MOU was made by Colombian lawyers thinking about the reality in Latin America. So it was super extensive, and it was like super detailed. And we were signing this one with a person from the U.S. And we said, hey, you know what? We came back to Gemini and we said, hey, help us write an MOU for this type of deal. And then, as Carlos said before, we just had to tweak it, but it really worked. I did this for for a friend who is the owner of a big consortium of restaurants, and it basically says, hey, acting as a chef, expert in Asian food, create a recipe that mixes the those Indonesian flavors with the ingredients of the Colombian Pacific. Okay, and then you would get all of the ingredients, et cetera, et cetera. But most of these examples, what I want to do is show you that you can do whatever you think you want to do. You have a document, and I want this one to summarize this document. So I feed him the document, and it basically takes the document and gives me a summary. Okay. And the last one that I have here, and this is a larger prompt, but it says, acting as a digital marketing expert, create an outline for a marketing campaign in which I am launching a hair product for dogs, and your target market buyer persona is a 29-year-old Latin American couple. Okay. And then again, it will be able to produce anything you want. One caveat, all of these are publicly available models. So probably if you use them as is, yours is not going to be that original from the rest. So you will need to tweak it, and also be mindful of your information and the privacy of your information. But as you can find general purpose ones, you can find a specific, industry specific or topic specific models. So like Midjourney and Runway, the ones that I showed you, that can create pictures, or that can create video or audio or whatever. But they're also like, if you are into law and you need a contract, maybe you would go and use a model like Harvey. Or if you are building or are related to the healthcare system and you want something built on top of a model which is HIPAA compliant, then you would use MedML. Okay, but the thing here is there are models that are general, there are models that are specific, there are models that are free, there are models that have subscriptions, but your first way in would be to try and use one of these pre-built applications. The second way is using new capabilities in the apps that we already use. And most of the people have already these things on their computers or their phones, but most of them don't know. If you use Google or if you use Windows or Microsoft, both of them have very similar functionalities, new functionalities. For example, you're in a meeting and at the end of the meeting, you wanted to make a summary of the meeting and list the topics of the things that you agreed upon. Or you can tell it, hey, help me write an email relating to this topic. Oh, hey, you know what? This thread of emails, can you please summarize it and let me know what's going on? Or you can tell it, hey, based on this information, help me build a presentation. So if you use Google or if you use Microsoft, both of them have those capabilities. Even more, if you have already updated your phones, your iPhones, to 18.2, you will see this new button right here in any place that you're writing text, okay? And it'll give you several options. One of the options is proofread the text that you've written, or you can rewrite it. And then you can tell it, hey, you know what? Rewrite this in a more professional way. So you can see the text that I was writing to Carlos, and then I told the algorithm to rewrite it on a more professional way, and it basically replaced the text with that kind of language. So you can use it already in your phones. You can use it even if you have a Mac. You will probably have seen this new little button that says summarize, and when you hit it on your email on the email application, you will get a summary of it. Okay. So again, Microsoft, Google, Apple already have all of these functionalities in their applications. Most of them are free, like for daily use, but also if you use SAP or you use Oracle or you use Salesforce or you use Amazon or you use IBM or Adobe or Microsoft, all of them are incorporating new AI functionalities into their offerings. So the second way is, okay, the things that I use, what kind of new AI capabilities are being introduced into their programs? Should I pay for them? Can I get them for free? But I think most importantly, how do I work with my team so they know they have these capabilities and they're able to take advantage of them? Okay. And then the last one, or the last way, is tailor-made solutions, and it's then hiring someone or hiring a team internally and building solutions that can help you. With what? With whatever you want. Today, we're using AI to detect cancer faster. In finance, we use automation for trading. Companies are using AI for decreasing or to control the costs of cooling data centers, even the cost of all legal requests. So us, for example, we have a customer that buys judicial sentences. So it buys um, contracts. And I remember when we started talking with them, they told us, hey, I know how many contracts I can fulfill in a day. I can review in a day, but I cannot move more because half of the day, my lawyers are basically picking up the information. They're not even understanding what's going on with the contract. They're just picking up, okay, who, when, how much. That's it. And now our algorithm plays all that part. And so they are basically running a 40% increase on what they did with the same stuff. If you've seen lately some kind of message from your bank when you do a transaction, it's basically because most of the systems now are using AI to predict online fraud. Walmart did a very cool, interesting exercise last year. They needed to create, or they needed to improve 850 million pieces of data in their catalog. And basically what they said was, if we didn't use generative AI to do this, we would have to hire 100 times all of the employees that we have currently in the company to do so. American Airlines is using machine learning to basically decrease by 8 seconds the amount of time that you have to invest because they left you on gate A12 and not gate C14. And for example, Petrobras unearthed 120 million in savings in 3 weeks, basically by putting all of the tax codes and all of their previous tax declarations and saying, hey, you know what? Tell me how we should pay taxes for the next trimester. And they found all of this money. And there's a cool customer in Colombia. They have a pilot. They're a healthcare provider. So they have a pilot in which the doctors, when a patient comes in, the doctor opens all of the medical history, and there's a co-pilot that summarizes all of the information. And then when he or she is writing the symptoms, it can start giving the doctor information of, oh, this is probably this is probably that. Be careful with this is probably that. So you can use AI wherever. What happens when people use AI? 66% say they have increase in operational efficiency. 57% they have seen improvements in customer experience. Almost 50% see an innovation that is faster. 48% say they see a boost in employee productivity. 39% say they have been able to launch new products and services, and 35% say that they have better decision-making process thanks to the information and thanks to the use of AI. And thus we come to the most used phrase about artificial intelligence, and you've probably heard it at least twice in the last year. Artificial intelligence will take your job. No. Someone who knows how to use artificial intelligence will take your job, as it has happened before. Think of the accountants, and think today of an accountant that doesn't use at least Excel. Or think of an architect or an engineer, and think how we did all of the drawings and the plans and everything by hand. And think of how many that are not fluent in using, for example, CAD systems, and how an architect that doesn't know how to use CAD systems is basically unemployable, because those who do can do the same job faster, better, more integrated. Okay, so finishing up, SMBs, where to focus? First one, look into your operations. Look for those manual and complex processes. Things that you say, hey, we do this every day is the same, and we use 3-4 applications, or we use different types of information, and it takes a lot of time for my people. And when it takes a lot of time for the people, it usually means that there's also a high level of errors in it. So search for those manual and complex processes. Second, anything that is related to data crunching. You can automate it. You can give it to an AI. It'll do a better work. Anything that comes out of that data, anything that is data intensive, anything that has to take that data and analyze it, AI is perfect for that. We've seen a lot of things related to marketing. You can do marketing campaigns, you can do marketing contacts, you can do a lot of things related to marketing today with not even advanced AI features, but very simple AI features that'll help you. Anything that affects the productivity of your people, you can sit down and think, okay, what about the work of this person is not strategic, and how can I replace that part of his job or her job with a robot that can do it, so I can let that people focus on things that are really important and strategic. Customer service, especially in the last 9 months, we've seen a huge influx of new functionalities that with AI they can help with it. And I always tell my customers, when I speak with most of my customers and we speak about the future, most of them think about the future as something that is really far away. But the truth is that the future is now. So with that, I would love to open the floor to questions. If you want if you'd like to download the slides of the presentation, you can do it using the QR code. And again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for having me. I hope it was worth the time.
Amazing. Samir, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh,
Yes.
good. What a great presentation. I definitely have my own questions. So I don't know if anybody else has questions, feel free to jump in or raise your hand and we can kind of go down the line. But like when I think about AI, like downloading the stuff to your computer, that looks so cool, but am I right in thinking that like anything you put into AI can be used, like it's now belongs to the world or belongs to AI, so that you shouldn't put like anything proprietary in there? That's my first thing. Am I thinking about that right?
Yes. Yes, and we have the story. Some Samsung executives at the end of 2023, they were like super baffled with ChatGPT, and they used it to ask questions about some unreleased product. And then they figured out that all the information that they fed the algorithm was now public. So two things: if you're using a free service, it will take your information and it will use it for its own training and probably be available for someone else. If you're using a paid subscription, you need to check what the type of limitations are included. Most of them will tell you we will use the information to train our model, but we will not share this information. And some of the new models, you can clearly exclude anything that you brief into. You can exclude it from being shared or even used to train other algorithms. So most of the paid ones, you can use them to train the model that you were building for yourself, but it will not be available for any other models.
Okay, and then
Being
my
back
next,
on being back on that because it's related, Samir. I wanted to ask about um, any situations on the copyrights. I mean, because I see the how this can help in marketing, but is there any copyright laws already made for these things, or is it all free and we can use whatever we want to use?
So there's two different discussions related to copyright. The first one is the information on which the models were trained. So you've probably seen big newspapers or news outlets that have been fighting the OpenAIs or Googles and saying, "Hey, you trained that model in my content." Okay. The second one is what happens when I use something. If you paid for it, you can use it. It'll probably have a tag that says it was AI generated. And most of the social media networks now, if you use an image that has been AI generated, will include a tag for the person, for the public to understand. But if you're producing something with one of these services, you're okay. You won't be sued by the owner of the copyright or the original information on which it was trained, but that model could be eventually sued by them. If you use, for example, the new functionalities of Adobe, it clearly states that it will protect you from any infringement that someone brings up against you, but you have to be very aware of it.
So it would be important to understand the terms of usage of each individual platform, regardless of if it is an open platform, free platform, or if it's something you have to pay for. Understand the terms of use regarding copywriting and usage.
Yeah.
Okay.
so then like the example that you used where it says like summarize my emails or like anything you would install on your desktop. I mean, that makes me think like, okay, well now they have access to all my information. Like, how do you
So that's very
avoid
cool.
that? Is that
For
by
example,
paying for it? And then if so, like, what's the
yeah,
best
it
one to
depends.
start with?
It depends. So, for example, if you use the new if you use the new Apple Intelligence features in your phone or your Mac, one, they're free. Two, they are run in your machine. So they do not share it, they do not use it. It's basically private for you. If you use the free version of Gmail or the free version of Office 365, it will use that information to train the algorithm, not to share it with anyone else. But if you're a paying customer, for example, of Google Workspace, or you're a paying customer of Office 365, that information will only be used to train the model for you, but will not be shared or used for third parties. So as Carlos said before, you need to understand what are the conditions of what are you are using, and what type of information you want to do. I really like, and I'm super biased because I'm like an Apple freak, but I really like the implementation of Apple because it's super private. It'll run on your device. It will not share that information. If they do go to the service because they need more processing power, they built a new thing, a new architecture for doing it. And again, it's free with your computer or your phone. The case if it's an iPhone, you need to have an iPhone 15 Pro or Pro Max or an iPhone 16. But in some way, you always need to understand what service you're using before doing anything.
Yeah,
And if
and
you're doing just something more corporate, you will probably, our recommendation would be, use something you pay for. You know, don't use a free thing. If you're using a free thing, you're basically paying with your information.
exactly.
Samir, can you
I
tell us?
would add, if you are working with confidential information, if you want to generate something that is confidential, proprietary, something that is a patent or a patent subject material, uh, be very careful and understand where to use it and the copywriting and the privacy of use of the information. If you're using it for building some mails, building a campaign, something more generic that you just need like a high level frame or a detailed frame of what you're doing, but then you're going to tweak it and personalize it, just go ahead, green light.
Samir, great presentation. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you,
your
Luis.
time. I have a comment and a question. Could you please tell us a little bit about legislation, how the government is driving this unbelievable boat, and where are we going? How are the restrictions, etc.?
So if you look, for example, at what's going on in Europe, they have a very detailed AI policy use. Okay, there's a very detailed policy. If you look at what's going on in California, they already have like a framework. The rest of the US was kind of waiting to see what would end up working. There's a framework that most of the companies have accepted, a framework produced by the Biden administration, but we think that probably in a couple of weeks it'll be thrown to the garbage. And I don't know if you've seen what Mark Zuckerberg said yesterday, but basically they were saying, hey, you know what? We're changing our moderation policies. And I think we're going to see, in my own opinion, and remember, I don't live in the US, okay? It's going to be the Wild Wild West. And I think we're going to see a turmoil probably in the next year. In the meantime, like the government aren't articulating what they're doing. Trump already said that he wants this guy, I don't remember the name of the guy, as an AI czar. The guy knows what he's doing. He's not that radical, not even on the right or the left. He's not that radical. So I think maybe there will be a framework that works. In the case of a user, not in the case of the big models, but in the case of a user that uses AI, there's nothing that would put you in any legal trouble by using the different models available, unless you use them, A, to produce a virus, B, to produce a weapon, C, to attack someone. But if it's for a business purpose, you would be okay.
Thank you.
Okay, my last question is, for a small business that's looking to automate things or save time or improve operations, if there was one program that you recommended that they start with, what would that be?
I would not recommend a program. I would recommend trying to sit down and think and figure what are the things that really hurt the business. And then from that, you can say, okay, I will use I don't know, a Gemini model, or I would use an open AI model, or maybe it's not, I don't even have to go that far. For example, we work with two different platforms. One is called BotMaker, and they already have AI integrated into chatbots and mailbots. And we use another one called Rocketbot, and they're super cheap. And they also have already advanced AI functionalities. So don't, and most of the people that sell technology will try always to sell you a specific brand or a specific program. I would invite you to do it on the other way. Sit down, find what your problems are, and then when you find your problems, you can say, okay, this is AI, or this is a chat thing, or this is an automation thing, or this is, and from there you can then take the appropriate route. Most of the big companies are using different models. They're not, okay, I'm 100% into OpenAI. No, most of the companies, as happened with cloud computing, most found out that the better way was to be multi-cloud. So most of them are doing multimodal. But for a small and medium company, I would say start with your pain. Sit down and find what hurts you and why it hurts, and then from there, someone can advise you on where to go. We would happily do it if the chance arises, but start with the pain. Start with the why, not with the what.
Amazing. Okay. Well, let me try to turn my video on here. I wish we had more. I could talk. I have so many other questions, but I'm gonna hold them. Does anybody, members, do you have any questions before we close the webinar on AI with Samir?
Well, in
And then
fact, we're
Samir, I
doing
know
this
that you.
one. We're doing this one in Spanish next week. So if you or your team want to come for the Spanish one, you're welcome.
Yes, thank you for the reminder. So this same webinar will be in Spanish next week on Thursday. You can find that information on our website and registration as well. Samir had put up that QR code, which leads to his website where you can download the slides. I'm sure you can get a hold of him if you have questions through there. Oh, here we have a question from Tony Velasco. I know there's different types of software for construction estimating, but have you heard or know about using AI to estimate construction projects?
Tony, we've seen the first step was doing BIM, and that would help. And now we've seen most of the developers of construction software are including AI functionalities that will how you say it, that will give more power to the BIM. But yes, I can check for a couple, and then through Anita, I can send you information.
That's a great question. Now we're thinking. We're going down this road. I'm going to look into it for my own business too. Well, great, wonderful, amazing webinar. My mind is blown. And thank you for coming. We're really happy to have you here. Again, a reminder, this webinar will be next week on Thursday in Spanish. Invite your friends and anyone that you think could benefit from it. We'll go ahead and close this out. The recording also will be available either on our website or our YouTube page. Fabio, I know you'll be uploading that. And so, yeah, thank you for coming. Samir, thank you.
Thank you for having me. Have a good afternoon.
Nice job. Yeah, have a good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year.